Deputy Secretary, thanks so much for joining us here. And this is actually your second visit with us. You know, about this time last year, you joined us for our Voice at the Table series. You talked about how the administration's working and the Commerce Department's working to build back better in terms of minority businesses, communities without access to affordable broadband, you know, and equity generally in terms of commerce. So what's the report card? Like, what's the update on those things? And does it, you know, kind of manifest itself across the department and even beyond the department and MBDA, the Minority Business Development Agency?
Well, thank you, Spencer. Let me first start off by just saying thanks to Spencer for your friendship, your partnership, your leadership on behalf of so many communities, so many people around the country, but especially here in Washington, D.C. It can't be said enough times just how important a role Spencer and the Joint Center have played in so many of the policy areas, but just as importantly, because we know that people is policy, in making sure that this administration, something the President cares a lot about, this administration is representative of the diversity of this country, not just in terms of racial diversity, but the lived experiences of folks in this country. It's as my good friend Rita Jo just said, we wouldn't be here in these roles were it not for the good leadership of one Spencer Overton, the Joint Center, the great work that you all have done for many, many years. So thank you for everything you've done. Congratulations. And you know, you also are very lucky with Paul Thornell, who is also a dear friend. Congratulations to him on the chairmanship. The organization will be in good hands, I'm sure, going forward. Let me just say that your question was talking about what the department has done to follow through on everything that we discussed last year. And I'm not going to cover everything that we've done because we could probably be here all day. Most people think of the Department of Commerce as the Department of Business, but we are the Department of Business and Economic Growth, the Department of Science, Innovation, the Department of Data and Information. We basically touch on everything that you can think of domestically, economically, internationally. We touch on it. The key of all of this, though, is making sure that this country and all of our workers, all of our businesses, all of our communities are more competitive, and that competitiveness turns into economic success that is inclusive. So again, getting back to your question, we have been very focused on making sure that inclusion, as we grow the economy, as we make it more competitive, that it is broadly based and equitable. That's why you've heard a lot about the programs that we have that thankfully to the President's leadership and because of the good help and support of our friends in Congress, we've passed not just the rescue plan, not just the bipartisan infrastructure law, once in a generation investment in infrastructure. We passed the CHIPS and Science Act just a few months ago. We've passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which is a game changer for many of our communities. And so we are in the process of implementing on those things. But it can't just be business as usual as we implement. So we think about the nearly $50 billion that we're investing in high-speed internet across the country. I know you heard from our Assistant Secretary earlier in the day about the work that we're doing on high-speed internet. Suffice it to say, it's not just about connecting every community and every household. Something the President has said from day one of his campaign was to connect every household in the country to high-speed internet. But it's not just about the connection. It's about making sure that folks have the tools to be able to connect. And we know that in communities of color, that's been a particular problem. It's having the equipment, if you will, and also having the skill set to be able to use it. And finally, to be able to afford it. So it's, you know, if you say you have high-speed internet in your community, delivered to your house or to your business, but you can't afford it, then what use is it? So
Right.
we're tackling all of those things with a very focused effort to make sure that equity underpins everything we do on that front. We're also investing $52 billion in driving the semiconductor industry. You all may have heard this, but we don't actually produce the lion's share of chips in this country anymore, even though we have Silicon Valley out in the West Coast. In fact, we don't produce any of the most advanced chips in the world, the things that power our most important equipment and devices. Why is that important? Because if you want your appliances to run in your household, if you want to use your phone, if you want to drive your car, if you want to produce cars, if you want to build these things in the United States, you have to have the chips. So we're going to rebuild this ecosystem in the US and use the $52 billion to do that. But we have to be intentional about the way that we make these investments. It can't be just giving dollars willy-nilly to companies that we hope will invest the right way. It's about being very intentional about investing the dollars to grow the ecosystem in communities across the country, that we're doing in a way that allows us to have the small and mid-sized companies that are participating in that ecosystem be resilient and have opportunities they wouldn't have had before, that we're investing not just in the parts of the country that have consistently gotten these types of investments, but looking at how we can spread these investments all across the country, making sure that there's not a corner of the country that doesn't have some connection to the investment going forward. So we're going to be very, very intentional about driving economic development and working with our partners all across government. So it's Transportation Department, the Energy Department, HUD, SBA, of course, our friends at XM, and investing these dollars in ways that lift up communities. And frankly, we can use our tools to make sure that we're supporting minority and women-owned businesses in ways that we haven't ever before. The last thing that I'll just say and stop hogging the floor here is part of the the bipartisan infrastructure law. We talked a little bit about this last year. It's done. It's now in place. The Minority Business Development Agency at the Commerce Department is now a permanent part of the U.S. government. First time in our history, we've had the one component of the federal government that focuses on the long-term health and success of minority businesses. It is now not something that has to be re-upped every year by Congress. It's a permanent part of the federal government. We have an undersecretary that has been confirmed by the Senate. We're a fantastic leader. Many of you know Don Cravens.
Yep.
We are so excited that Don is the undersecretary. It gives us the ability not just to lift up businesses, but we have a mandate to drive opportunities across the federal government, basically to call every other federal department to the table and say, what are you doing? What's your commitment? What's your plan? How are you working with partners on the outside? And then not just show us your plan, but we're going to track your performance on utilization of minority businesses. And if you aren't doing a good job, then we can hold them accountable for what they're doing. So that's what we're so excited about MBDA being able to do going forward, is to really drive the utilization of minority businesses in ways that aren't just the traditional supplier diversity efforts, but really we're cutting across all types of industries and professional endeavors so that we get minority businesses the rightful place at the table that we've waited on for so many decades.
And definitely congratulations on the codification. MBDA announced $5 million in funding for MBDA business centers. Tell us a little bit more about how this can help Black businesses and just anything else in terms of the legislation and its, support for Black businesses.
Well, I'm glad you asked that. We announced $5 million to support these minority business centers across the country. It's part of a network of 41 minority business centers that MBDA runs, and that's part of a broader network of 80 business centers that is focused on supporting minority businesses across the country. So we're in every state in the country. We're in most of the big pockets of minority individuals in this country. And these centers are really the one-stop shop for minority businesses to be able to understand the resources that are available across the federal government, the opportunities that exist at both the federal and also the state level that they may not know about. And it's giving us the ability to work through HBCUs and other MSIs across the country to make sure that there are pathways, clear pathways for the growth of minority businesses on an ongoing basis. We have a lot of good partners with these institutions, but this is just the start, as I said. MBDA, when we get their new budget, hopefully passed through Congress, and are able to up the support of minority businesses across the country, I think you will see a game changer in utilization. It's not just going to be about the janitorial services that I know in the past folks have focused on, or service industries. It's about making sure that as it relates to semiconductors, minority businesses are at the table in the semiconductor industry, in broad technology industries. So we're cutting across the industries that minority businesses haven't played in up until this point.
Mm-hmm. And this gets to this next question in terms of chips. We've heard from Secretary Raimondo, we've heard from you about how critical it is for the department to ensure that these CHIPS investments will be inclusive and broadly shared in terms of all Americans. So just breaking it down, and we hear about CHIPS and how this is, so why is it important to Black communities? Why is CHIPS important to Black communities, and what systems and processes are currently in place to ensure that these commitments, so that there's broad inclusion, so that actually is effectuated, so that you all stay true to that?
It's a great question, but as I said a few minutes ago, chips are at the heart of everything that drives our economy these days. You basically can't find an industry where chips aren't an integral part of everything that they do. That, of course, includes all the consumer electronics that we all use every day. And so our ability to build national resiliency around semiconductors is going to make or break our ability to manufacture going forward. We know that we've already created, I think it's, and I may get the numbers slightly off, about 700,000 manufacturing jobs in this country, but we have the potential to create hundreds of thousands more of these manufacturing jobs because of the investments that we know are coming. The only way we can get those jobs created is if we build this semiconductor ecosystem. Now, to get to the point that I think you wanted me to make, the only way that we can make sure that communities of color are at the table is if we make certain that these investments have that when we're accepting the applications, when we're thinking about the plans, when we're talking with states, when we're talking with our partners across the federal government who are also part of building this ecosystem, that we're asking folks to be intentional. Show us the money, essentially. We need to see your plans for how you're going to make sure that if we're giving you these dollars, that you are going to be, as I said earlier, very intentional about investing in and with communities of color, in and with minority businesses, because we can't, I think about every technological revolution that's occurred in the last 150 or so years, and for almost all of them, minority communities have been an afterthought and have been, we've come along because we realize that something's moving, and so we try to get in. but it hasn't been intentional. And this gives us an opportunity to make sure that as I said, every investment or application for dollars has some sort of a plan to make sure that we are driving equity, that we're driving inclusion, and that these dollars are being spent not just at a fabrication facility, but they're driving economic growth in a broader region around that facility.
Mm-hmm. So now we're almost at time, but just a final question here, Deputy Secretary. I know the Biden administration has had a number of accomplishments that affect Black communities over the past 2 years. For you, you're close to the president. For you, what are the most significant accomplishments that you would want people to know in this room? And then also, what do you think the priorities are over the next couple of years that are most relevant to Black communities?
Well, I would not be a good friend of the president if I didn't remind folks of not what he's done in the departments, but what he's been able to do with the judicial system. Mm-hmm. That is an absolute game changer. More Black women judges have been confirmed under Joe Biden than any other president combined. So frankly, it's his appointments in general. So it's judges on the bench. It's certainly our new Supreme Court justice. It's the two of the three new members of the Federal Reserve. It's
including the first Black woman.
Including Kuna Cook.
In the history,
yes,
since 1913.
Exactly.
Here, Dr.
Exactly.
Lisa Cook. Just yes,
not
it's major.
Lisa Cook. I apologize. Akuna is the former DAS.
No.
Too many cooks.
No.
But it's having people in critically important positions. Commissioner Stark, who you heard from earlier today, it's Rita Joe, it's people all across these agencies that are, again, being very intentional, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because they have the lived experience. They understand what communities go through. And this is not about trying to create an illegal plan to drive dollars to a community. It's making sure that dollars that should have been flowing to communities, that decisions that affect communities can reflect the system that we have and can flow, the dollars can then flow to communities that have missed out on opportunities in the past.
Which helps us all.
Which helps everybody. And I've said this before, and I will say this again. The research shows that when you invest in communities of color, when you break down the systemic racial barriers for communities of color, it means that you grow the economy. Mm-hmm. If we can eliminate these systemic barriers in the next 5 years, that will grow our economy by $6 trillion. Mm-hmm. For an economy that is $27, $28 trillion, to be able to grow by $6 trillion, there's virtually no other mechanism that we have that will allow us to grow that way in 5 years, other than breaking down these barriers and creating a more inclusive economy.
All right. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining the Joint Center. Appreciate it.